Reuben and Esther have been engaged for 6 years. Reuben's father takes him aside one day and says, "You have been engaged for so long. I would like some grandchildren. When are you going to marry Esther?" "Father, I would not be able to marry Esther till I can see what she looks like." "What do you mean? You know what she looks like. You see her every day. I mean all of her." "Oi, Faye, that will be impossible." But in the end, the two families arrive at a compromise. They decide that Esther will undress in her bedroom with both families and Reuben outside on the landing. When the signal is given, Reuben will be allowed to peep through the keyhole so he can see Esther in the all-together. Come the day, Esther's mother is looking through the keyhole and tells Reuben that Esther is ready. Reuben kneels down and peers through the keyhole. After 5 minutes, Reuben's father says, "Well, are you satisfied now?" Reuben stands up and says, "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I won't be able to marry Esther." Both families in unison say, "Why? What is wrong with Esther?" "I don't like her nose." What do retired people do all day? Working people frequently ask old folks what they do to make their days interesting. Well, for example, the other day, Marilyn and I went to town and went into a store. We were only there for about 5 minutes, but when we came out, a cop was writing out a parking ticket. We walked up to him, and I said, "Come on, how about giving a senior citizen a break?" He ignored us and continued writing the ticket. I called him a Nazi bastard. He glared at me and started writing a second ticket, this one for having worn tires. Marilyn called him a shithead. He finished the second ticket and put it on the windshield with the first, then he started writing a third ticket. This went on for about 20 minutes. The more we told the pig what we thought of him, the more tickets he wrote out. Personally, we didn't care, because we caught the bus to town. We try to have a little fun each day now that we're retired. It's important at our age. A woman and man get into a car accident. Both of their cars are totally demolished, but amazingly, neither of them are hurt. After they crawl out of the wreckage, the woman says, "Wow, look at our cars, there's nothing left. Thank God we are all right. This must be a sign from him that we should be friends and not try to pin the blame on each other." The man replies, "Oh yes, I agree with you completely." The woman points to a bottle on the ground and says, "And here's another miracle. Somehow this bottle of scotch from my back seat didn't break. Surely God wants us to drink this scotch and celebrate our good fortune." Then she hands the bottle to the man. The man nods his head in agreement, opens it, and drinks about a third of the bottle to calm his nerves. He then hands it back to the woman. The woman takes the bottle, immediately puts the cap back on, and hands it back to the man. The man asks, "Aren't you having any?" The woman replies, "No, I think I'll just wait for the police. I'll let them decide whose fault it is." All of the organs are deciding who should be in charge. "I should be in charge," said the brain. "I run all the body's systems. Without me, nothing would happen." "I should be in charge," said the heart. "I circulate oxygen and nutrients all over." "No, I should be in charge," said the stomach. "I process the food that gives us energy." "I should be in charge," said the legs. "Without me, the body couldn't go anywhere." "I should be in charge," said the eyes. "I allow the body to see where it goes." "I should be in charge," said the anus. "I'm responsible for waste removal." All of the other body parts laughed at the anus and insulted him, so he shut down. Within a few days, the brain had a terrible headache, the stomach was bloated, the legs got wobbly, the eyes got watery, and the heart pumped toxic blood. They all decided that the anus should be the boss. What is the moral of the story? Even though everybody else does all of the work, the usually in charge. A mathematician and an engineer agree to a psychological experiment. The mathematician is taken to a large room with a beautiful naked female lying on a chaise lounge in one corner and a chair in the opposite corner. The psychologist says, "She is yours, but the only catch is that you must sit in the chair, and every 5 minutes I will move the chair to a position halfway between its current position and the chaise lounge." The psychologist emphasizes, "You are to remain in your chair." The mathematician looks at the psychologist quizzically. "What? I'm not going to go waste my time. You know and I know that I'll never reach the chaise lounge." The mathematician then marches out. The psychologist makes a note on his clipboard and ushers the engineer in. He explains the situation, and the engineer's eyes light up and he has a broad smile on his face. The psychologist is confused. Surely, being a technical man, you must know that you will never reach the lady? The engineer's smile broadens. Of course, but I'll get close enough. But I'll... A priest, a doctor, and an engineer were waiting one morning for a particularly slow group of golfers. The engineer fumed. What's with those guys? We must have been waiting for 15 minutes. The doctor chimed in. I don't know, but I've never seen such inept golf. The priest said, Here comes the greenkeeper. Let's have a word with him. He said, Hello, George. What's wrong with that group ahead of us? They're rather slow, aren't they? The greenkeeper replied, Oh, yes, that's a group of blind firemen. They lost their sight saving our clubhouse from a fire last year, so we always let them play for free any time. The group fell silent for a moment. The priest said, That's so sad. I think I will say a special prayer for them tonight. The doctor said, Good idea. I'm going to contact my ophthalmologist colleague and see if there's anything he can do for them. The engineer said, Why can't they play at night? Two blondes went out deer hunting, and they managed to shoot a deer. They started dragging the deer by the hind legs to get it back to their pickup truck. An experienced hunter saw them and said, No, girls, you're doing it wrong. You're dragging against the grain of the deer's hair. If you drag by the antlers, you'll be pulling with the grain of the hair, and it will be much easier. So the two blondes started dragging their deer by the antlers. After about 20 minutes, one said to the other, You know, that old guy was right. It's so much easier to drag the deer by the antlers. It's like it's just gliding along the ground. Yeah, he was, said the other blonde. But we sure are getting far away from our pickup. Several years ago, Andy was sentenced to prison. During his stay, he got along well with the guards and all his fellow inmates. The warden saw that deep down Andy was a good person and made arrangements for Andy to learn a trade while doing his time. After 3 years, Andy was recognized as one of the best carpenters in the local area. Often he would be given a weekend pass to do odd jobs for the citizens of the community, and he always reported back to prison before Sunday night was over. The warden was thinking of remodeling his kitchen and, in fact, had done much of the work himself. But he lacked the skills to build a set of kitchen cupboards and a large countertop, which he had promised his wife. So he called Andy into his office and asked him to complete the job for him. But alas, Andy refused. He told the warden, Gosh, I'd really like to help you, but counterfeiting is what got me into prison in the first place. A man in a hot air balloon realized he was lost. He reduced to altitude and spotted a woman below. He descended a bit more and shouted, Excuse me, can you help me? I promised a friend I would meet him an hour ago, but I don't know where I am. The woman below replied, You're in a hot air balloon hovering approximately 30 feet above the ground. You are between 40 and 41 degrees north latitude and between 59 and 60 degrees west longitude. You must be a programmer, said the balloonist. I am, replied the woman. How did you know? Well, answered the balloonist, everything you told me is technically correct, but I have no idea what to make of your information, and the fact is I am still lost. Frankly, you've not been much help so far. The woman below responded, You must be a manager. I am, replied the balloonist. But how did you know? Well, said the woman, you don't know where you are or where you're going. You have risen to where you're due to a large quantity of hot air. You made a promise that you have no idea how to keep, and you expect me to solve your problem. The fact is, you are in exactly the same position you were in before we met, but now, somehow, it's my fault. A couple are having dinner at a nice restaurant. A lovely young woman walks up to the table, kisses the man on the cheek, and says, See you later, sweetie, before walking away. The wife is livid. Who the hell was that, and what did she mean about seeing you later? That's just my mistress, Laura. You have a mistress, and she has the nerve to walk up to us in public? This is unforgivable. I want a divorce. Honey, she means nothing to me, just a bit of harmless fun. I love you, and I want us to live a long life together. Not after the way you humiliated me tonight. Look, I'll make sure that she doesn't do anything like that again. You mean you're going to see her again? Of course. Divorce. You need to think this through. We have a prenup. If we divorce, you'll be comfortable. but at a very different level. No more taking the jet to Paris for shopping, no more beach house, no more cruises on the yacht. Even dinners like this won't be common. She is quiet for a while, then she says, "Isn't that Ted from the club? Who's he with?" "It isn't Stella. That's Ted's mistress. I think her name is Christy or Chrissy or something like that." Ours is prettier." 3 friends, a turtle, a mole, and a bear are drafted and have to join the army. But neither of them wants to go, so they need to provide medical proof of why they can't join. "It's easy for me," says the turtle. "I am slow." He enters the examination room, and when he comes out, he happily tells his friend that he is in fact too slow. "Well," says the mole next, "I am literally blind. How would they want me?" And he's right. He comes out a few minutes later and hugs his friends because he doesn't have to join the army because they don't need a blind mole. "Okay, guys," says the terrified bear. "Let's face it, I am one of the biggest and most dangerous animals. I am the perfect soldier." "I have an idea," says the turtle slowly. "The most dangerous part of you is your teeth. Without your teeth, you are not really dangerous. So if we just smash your teeth, they won't want you." Reluctantly, the bear agrees, and the 3 friends start smashing the bear's teeth. Without teeth, the bear enters the examination room and after 10 minutes comes out again with a hanging head and sad face. "So you have to join the army?" the turtle asks carefully. The bear mumbles, "No, I'm too fat." A little boy and his grandfather are raking leaves in the yard. The little boy sees an earthworm trying to get back into its hole. He says, "Grandpa, I bet I can put that worm back in that hole." The grandfather replies, "I'll bet you $5 you can't. It's too wiggly and limp to put back in that little hole." The little boy runs into the house and comes back out with a can of hairspray. He sprays the worm until it is straight and stiff as a board. The boy then proceeds to put the worm back into the hole. The grandfather hands the little boy $5, grabs the hairspray, and runs into the house. 30 minutes later, the grandfather comes back out and hands the boy another $5. The little boy says, "Grandpa, you already gave me $5. The grandfather replies, "I know, that's from your grandma." A guy sits down in a movie theater and notices that the man in front of him has brought his dog and it's sitting in the seat next to him. He thinks it's unusual, but he likes dogs, so he decides that as long as it's not a distraction, he won't mention it. The movie starts, and pretty soon there's a funny part. The dog makes some low woofing sounds that seem like laughter. In a little while, there's a sad part, and the dog appears to be weeping. This continues throughout the film, and the man sitting behind the dog is astounded. When the lights come up, he taps the dog's owner on the shoulder and tells him, "I gotta say, and I know it sounds weird, but it seemed like your dog really enjoyed this movie." The dog owner looks at the dog and nods. "I know, it really is weird," he says, "because he absolutely hated the book." A young actor, new on the scene and nervous about it, is trying to make his first big role count. In his first on-stage appearance, his character has a fairly simple scene to pull off. He walks on stage holding a rose between his fingers. He waves it past his nose with a big whiff, then declares, "Ah, the scent of my lover, there can be none sweeter." He's nervous about forgetting his line and making a bad first impression, so he throws himself into rehearsal. For weeks he practices, trying fancy flourishes with the rose and different inflections. "Ah, the scent of my lover. Ah, the scent of my lover. There can be none sweeter," until he's sure he's got the line down perfectly. The big night comes. He steps on stage and says his line, "Ain't," and the crowd roars with laughter. The actor is confused and embarrassed. He rushes off to find the stage director standing behind the curtain, red-faced and furious. "What's wrong?" the actor cries. "I remembered my line perfectly." "Yes," growls the director, "but you forgot the bloody rose." A man is tossed off an ocean liner and ends up on a desert island. There are 2 other men who were living on the island, so the man pitched a house and stayed waiting to be rescued. After 2 weeks, the other 2 men go and take a bath in the springs, shave their faces with cut glass, and comb the rats out of their hair. The new man asks, "What are you doing that for?" The 2 old-timers tell him that once a month they swim to the other island and get with the chimpanzees that live there. The third man says, "Are you nuts? Count me out. I'm not that desperate." So the two men swim over and come back before nightfall. Another month goes by and the two men do the same bathing, shaving, hair combing, and swimming over to the island. By 3 months, the new islander decides he is going to go and check it out. The other two guys say, "Okay, we knew you would come around. It gets pretty lonely here." So all three men wash, comb their hair, cut their beards, and swim to the other island. The last man sees the two men getting with a couple of chimpanzees, so he searches around and finds a willing partner and starts making out with her. The other two men start rolling around on the ground, screaming and laughing uncontrollably. The new man is confused. "What the hell is wrong now?" The two men in unison say, "You pick the ugly one." A young couple is on their way to Las Vegas to get married. Before getting there, the girl said to the guy that she had a confession to make. The reason that they had not been intimate was because she was very flat-chested. If he wished to cancel the wedding, it would be okay with her. The guy thought about it for a while and said he did not mind if she was flat. And sex is not the most important thing in a marriage. Several miles down the road, the guy turned to the girl and said that he also wanted to make a confession. He said that, below his waist, he was just like a baby, and if the girl wished to cancel the wedding, it'd be fine by him. The girl thought about it for a while and said that she did not mind, and she also believed there were other things far more important in a marriage than sex. Both were happy that they'd been honest with each other. They went on to Vegas and got married. On the wedding night, the girl took off her clothes and she was as flat as a washboard. Finally, the guy took off his clothes and one look at the guy's naked body made the girl faint and fall to the floor. After she came to, the guy asked, "I told you before we got married. Why did you still faint?" The girl said, "You told me it was just like a baby." The guy replied, "Yes, 8 pounds and 21 inches. A blonde lady motorist was about 2 hours from San Diego when she was flagged down by a man whose truck had broken down. The man walked up to the car and asked, "Are you going to San Diego?" "Sure," answered the blonde. "Do you need a lift?" "Not for me. I'll be spending the next 3 hours fixing my truck. My problem is I've got 2 chimpanzees in the back that have to be taken to the San Diego Zoo. They're a bit stressed already, so I don't want to keep them on the road all day. Could you possibly take them to the San Diego Zoo for me? I'll give you $200 for your trouble." "I'd be happy to," said the blonde. So the 2 chimpanzees were ushered into the back seat of the blonde's car and carefully strapped into their seatbelts, and off they went. 5 hours later, the truck driver was driving through the heart of San Diego when suddenly he was horrified. There was the blonde walking down the street, holding hands with the 2 chimps, much to the amusement of a big crowd. With a screech of brakes, he pulled off the road and ran over to the blonde. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I gave you $200 to take these chimpanzees to the zoo." "Yes, I know you did," said the blonde. "But we had money left over, so now we're going to SeaWorld." A man hires a blonde to paint stripes down the middle of a road, giving her one simple rule. She must paint at least 4 miles per day to keep the job. On the first day, she absolutely crushes it. 8 miles. The boss is blown away. The second day, she paints 4 miles. Not as impressive, but still meeting the requirement. On the third day, she only manages 2 miles. The boss raises an eyebrow, but figures maybe she's just tired. By the 4th day, she barely scrapes out 1 mile. Frustrated, the boss finally asks, "What's going on? You started off amazing. Why are you slowing down so much?" The blonde wipes her forehead and sighs, "Well, I'm getting farther and farther away from the paint bucket." A family had twin boys whose only resemblance to each other was their looks. If one felt it was too hot, the other thought it was too cold. If one said the TV was too loud, the other claimed the volume needed to be turned up. Opposite in every way, one was an eternal optimist, the other a doom and gloom pessimist. Just to see what would happen on the twins' birthday, their father loaded the pessimist's room with every imaginable toy and game. The optimist's room he loaded with horse manure. That night, the father passed by the pessimist's room and found him sitting amid his new gifts, crying bitterly. "Why are you crying?" the father asked. "Because my friends will be jealous, and I'll have to read all these instructions before I can do anything with this stuff. I'll constantly need batteries, and my toys will eventually get broken," answered the pessimistic twin. Passing the Optimus Twins' room, the father found him dancing for joy in the pile of manure. "What are you so happy about?" he asked, to which his Optimus twin replied, "There's got to be a pony in here somewhere." The priest said, "Sister, this is a silent monastery. You are welcome here as long as you like, but you may not speak until directed to do so." Sister Mary lived in the monastery for 5 years before the priest said to her, "Sister Mary, you have been here for 5 years. You may speak 2 words." Sister Mary said, "Hard bed." "I'm sorry to hear that," the priest said. "We will get you a better bed." After another 5 years, Sister Mary was summoned by the priest. "You may say another 2 words, Sister Mary." "Cold food," said Sister Mary, and the priest assured her that the food would be better in the future. On her 15th anniversary at the monastery, the priest again called Sister Mary into his office. "You may say 2 words today." "I quit," said Sister Mary. "It's probably best," said the priest. "You've done nothing but complain since you got here." A man is walking along a California beach when he stumbles on an old weathered lamp. He picks it up, gives it a rub, and sure enough, a genie bursts out in a puff of smoke. The genie stretches, yawns, and says, all right, you've released me, yada yada. Listen, I'm getting tired, 4th time this month. So let's skip the usual routine. You get 1 wish, make it count." The man thinks for a moment, then says, "I've always wanted to visit Hawaii, but I'm terrified of flying, and I get seasick. Could you build a bridge from California to Hawaii so I can just drive there?" The genie stares at him. "Are you serious? Do you know how deep the Pacific is? Think of the pillars, the concrete, the rebar, and the environmental permits. That's insane. Choose something else, something realistic." The man nods thoughtfully. After a long pause, he says, "Okay, I've been married 4 times, and all my ex-wives said I'm insensitive. I want to understand women. I want to know what they're thinking, why they cry for no reason, what they mean when they say nothing, how to make them truly happy." The genie blinks. "You want that bridge 2 lanes or 4? A man boards a plane and takes his seat. As he's getting settled, he notices an incredibly beautiful woman walking down the aisle, and she's heading straight for him. To his surprise, she takes the seat right next to his. Eager to break the ice, he nervously asks, "Business trip or vacation?" She smiles and replies, "Business. I'm attending the annual Sexual Studies Convention in Chicago." The man's eyes widen. This stunning woman is going to a convention on sexual studies. Trying to stay calm, he asks, "So what's your role at the convention?" She turns to him, still smiling. "I'm a lecturer. I share my extensive personal experiences and facts about human sexuality." He swallows hard, intrigued but a little flustered. "Like, what kind of facts?" "Well," she begins, "for example, Native American Indians are known to be the most passionate lovers. Jewish men are the best at satisfying women. And surprisingly, Southern rednecks are the ones who last the longest in bed." She says this last part with a little blush, clearly embarrassed. Then she adds, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking to you about all of this. I don't even know your name." The man smiles, extends his hand, and says, "Tonto Goldstein at your service, but my friends call me Bubba." 2 policemen are on night patrol around 4 a.m. when they spot an older man wobbling down the street, barely able to walk in a straight line. They pull over and stop him. "Sir, where are you coming from at this hour?" one officer asks. The man grins, clearly tipsy. "I just left the best place in the world, my favorite bar. Amazing drinks, great music, and the friendliest girls you'll ever meet. Each one nicer than the last." One cop raises an eyebrow. "Sounds like quite the place." "And where exactly are you heading now?" the other asks. "Shouldn't you be in bed by now?" The man chuckles and says, "Bed? Are you kidding? I'm heading to a lecture on the dangers of alcohol, the harm of smoking, and how to behave responsibly in society." The officers glance at each other, skeptical. "At 4 in the morning, one says. Really? Who gives a lecture on that at this hour? The man sighs and mutters, "My wife." A mother-in-law decides to see if her 3 sons-in-law love her, or at least appreciate her. The next day, while strolling along the river with her first son-in-law, she lets herself fall into the water and starts to drown. Without hesitation, the son-in-law jumps in the river and saves his mother-in-law. The next day, in front of his house, he finds a new car, a city Honda, with a little note on the windshield. "Thank you on behalf of your mother-in-law." She undertakes the same scenario with her second eldest son-in-law. This one, too, dives into the river and saves his mother-in-law. The next day, he, too, in front of his house, finds a new car, the same city Honda with a little note on the windshield. "Thank you on behalf of your mother-in-law." The same scenario occurs with the third son-in-law. She falls in the water and starts to drown. He watches his mother-in-law drown while thinking to himself, "I've been waiting a long time for this." The next day, in front of his house, he sees a brand new Mercedes with a little note on the windshield. "Thank you on behalf of your father-in-law." A lawyer parks his brand new Porsche in front of the office to show it off to his colleagues. As he's getting out of the car, a semi-trailer comes flying along too close to the curb and takes off the door before speeding off. Distraught, the lawyer grabs his cell and calls the cops. 5 minutes later, the police arrive. Before the cop has a chance to ask any questions, the lawyer starts screaming hysterically, "My Porsche! My beautiful silver Porsche is ruined! No matter how long it's in the shop, it'll simply never be the same again." After the lawyer finally finishes his rant, the policeman shakes his head in disgust. "I can't believe how materialistic you bloody lawyers are," he says. "You lot are so focused on your possessions that you don't notice anything else in your life." "How can you say such a thing at a time like this?" snaps the lawyer. The policeman replies, "Didn't you realize your right arm was torn off when the truck hit you?" The lawyer looks down in absolute horror. Screams, "Where's my Rolex?" Jenny was sitting reading her favorite magazine when suddenly an ad pops for an all-expenses-paid cruise for the low price of $500. She excitedly goes to Jack, her husband, and shows him the ad. "Look, Jack," she says, "it's in 2 days and only $500. I'll be honest with you," said her husband. "I have too much work for a cruise. How about you go and have a good time?" His wife is a bit disappointed, but bounces back and decides she will have a good time anyway. The next day, Jack is in his office when his coworker, who is also his mistress, comes to him excitedly. "Look, Jack," she says, "there's this cruise tomorrow that is on sale. Only $500. "I'm really not into cruises, to be honest," replies Jack. "Here's $500. Why don't you go and have a good time?" She agrees to do just so, and as it turns out, both his wife and his mistress ended up going on the same cruise. A few days later, his wife comes back from the cruise. As she tells him how much fun she had, she shows him photos she took. While looking them over, Jack notices that his lover Brenda is in some of the photos in the background. He points to her and asks his wife, "Who's she?" "Oh, her," sniffs his wife disdainfully. "I call her the Cruise Slut because she slept with half of the men there." The next day, Jack goes to the office and gets the same excited story, accompanied by photos from his mistress Brenda. Once again, he sees a familiar face in some of the photos. His wife. He then points to his wife and asks Brenda, "Who is she?" "Oh, her," says Brenda. "She's such a nice woman with all the men on board. She never left her husband's side for a second." I've lived a few years in my home, and the pretty neighbor next door and I always flirted with each other, despite her being married. One day, when speaking to her husband, he said, "I need to have my apartment painted, but I work all day and I get tired. I tried to hire a professional painter, but the guy asked me for the arm and a leg." At that moment, I just had a brilliant idea. "Don't sweat it, neighbor. I'm on vacation and painting walls is my favorite hobby. It would be a pleasure to do this task." The husband accepted the offer gladly. I don't want to brag about my conversation skills, but I barely started to paint the apartment and I already had that woman in bed with me. But bad luck. We were just starting, and I did not expect the husband to forget his documents, and that for that reason he had to return home at that specific moment. The neighbor, listening to her husband opening the door, runs to the bathroom, and the guy enters the room and finds me naked at the top of the ladder with my brush on the wall painting. Screaming, he shouts at me, "What the heck is this? You started painting in my bedroom and naked." Hey, buddy, I'm working for free, so I start wherever I want. But naked? You really wanted me to stain my new clothes with paint? And with a boner, you bastard? And just where am I going to hang the darn bucket?